26th Health and Ed Committee meeting. It's hard to believe we were in the midst of a winter storm last month, and so we had to cancel one. We don't have a heavy agenda on as a typical health and ed. Sydney Butterfield's unavailable tonight, and the school board is preoccupied with some internal meetings. I think Brian Runyon can just give some brief bullets on that. And then we will have a budget amendment. So we do want to welcome Mr. Bill Parker with the Tennessee, he is the director of Tennessee Financial Literacy Commission, and we'll have Vice Chair Wilson introduce Bill and his companions tonight. I definitely want you to introduce your associates. And Mike Sparks, Tennessee representative, is here with us. Thank you, Mr. Sparks, for being here. Let's call the roll, please.
Commissioner Oliver?
Present.
Commissioner Davidson?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Boyd?
Here.
Commissioner McMurray?
Here.
Commissioner Gooch?
Here.
Chairman Dodd?
Present, thank you.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. No public comments. Vice Chair Wilson, have you had a chance to look at the minutes?
Chairman, this is going to be just a bit unusual tonight. What I noticed was the minutes that were placed in the folder to review for approval are actually from our November meeting. And I believe we approved those at the Joint Health and Ed and Budget Committee in December.
You did, but since that meeting's a little off, we didn't know.
Yes. So here's my question for the committee. I have reviewed the minutes of the joint meeting, and I'm going to be comfortable moving to approve those. But before doing so, I would like to ask the members, because these are located in the budget folder from their January meeting, and it is the December joint meeting minutes, is there any member that feels comfortable waiting or wanting to take time to review those minutes? And we could always postpone it and we can approve these next month. Is there anyone that wants to possibly defer to next month?
Comment.
Ms.
I have
Oliver.
had a chance to review them. They are quite comprehensive, and I love it. And I wish all of our minutes were this comprehensive. But my question is, can they be moved to our folder? A copy of it be moved to our folder?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And they'll just be moved there as approved if we choose to do so tonight.
Are you comfortable approving those? Or
I'm comfortable with it. I've read it.
And I've reviewed those as
Everybody
well.
else.
Well, then after reviewing those minutes, I will move for their approval as presented.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Brian, let's, Mr. Runyon, we will proceed with the third item, school board. And as I said, Brian, if you have any bullet points or any update on the busing issue, I will announce that we had anticipated the Board of Education, they were invited and had accepted to be here tonight because of the importance of the financial literacy resolution. So they are absent because of a bus condition. Brian, please. Proceed.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman. My name is Brian Runyon. I'm the CFO of Rutherford County Schools. Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Martin, and the board themselves are apologetic for not being here tonight. We had a situation that happened earlier this week that we found out about regarding one of our bus contractors, and so they had to do a special call meeting tonight. So that's where they're at. That's the reason why they're not here, or they would be here. So, but I'm going to speak to a few points of just to kind of get ahead of this, just so y'all will have some understanding of what we are messaging out to the parents. Some information that, you know, it's general, but yet at the same time, this is the message that we're trying to get out with the information that we got currently right now. As I said, our meeting started at 5:30. I don't know anything about what it's going to what's going to turn out about that, but I can give you some points of what we're messaging to the parents to kind of maybe put them a little bit at ease in this situation. So when they call about, you know, the bus route changes this week, We're trying to be as empathetic and apologetic as possible because we know this causes a significant inconvenience to many of the families. Safety, of course, is our top priority, and making sure we get the students where they need to be, to the correct school, to the drop-off points that they're supposed to be at as well. Yesterday, we had very minimal impact on the times that the students had to wait in order to make their buses. I mean, it didn't affect any of it. We heard no impact to the elementary schools. It affected very few middle and very few high schools. So that is good news. And we also want to thank those contractors who stepped up and was able to fill those routes in order to be able to wear very minimal impact to those students getting to school. But if they were absent or they were late or whatever, they were absolutely excused if they were affected by any of those route changes. The bus service obviously is provided by our owner-contractor system, which means we don't own our buses directly. So we have to contract out with them. Our school board contracts with the individual bus owners to cover those bus routes. And with that said, we are also, we're working fast to resolve those issues and fix those as quickly as possible. And as we're going along, we're trying to keep the parents informed real time. So that's the information I have as the CFO. Obviously, I'm not the chief information officer or anything like that, but I'll be glad with the limited information that I do have to answer any questions if you have anything. And then I'll get to my budget amendment. So, any questions?
I have questions. I was trying to give you all an opportunity so I wouldn't just have all of the questions, but I do have questions. Particularly, how many schools were impacted by those 41 buses?
In the information that I have seen, there was 40 routes, or there's 40 buses that caused the impact. Each one of those buses runs multiple routes. I would say somewhere between 15 to 20 schools, somewhere in that vicinity. I mean, I'm not going to give you an accurate number because I'm not in on all the transportation routes with that, but from what I could see, there was somewhere between 15 to 20 schools impacted.
Okay. And so what happened that the contractor lost the insurance, or did they ever have the insurance?
They did have insurance. It just lapsed.
Okay. And it lapsed for what reason?
I don't know how far I can go to put that information out. It is going to be put out, assuming at the board meeting. So I do know, but I don't know how much information I can put out as far as what the reasoning for the cancellation was. I don't feel comfortable and it's nothing against you, Ms. Oliver. I just don't know how much information I can put forward to the reasoning why it was canceled.
What is the amount of the insurance that was paid? What was the amount of the stipend that was paid for the insurance?
It was $4,000 per bus.
That's what I thought. And that was paid to the contractor?
It was paid directly to the contractor, yes.
And then the contractor failed to pay what they needed to pay, and the insurance lapsed?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And we will have the recap on anyone present or watching in YouTube will have, it's on live now, and we'll also have the tape will be up pretty quickly after they conclude their meeting. Mr. Gooch.
Hey, just one question. So I'm assuming that it's in the contract they have to have this insurance.
Correct.
So is this considered a breach of contract? And if so...
From my understanding, legally, yes.
Okay, so what do we typically do with contractors who breach that contract? Is it a...
That's the reason for this
That's the
special
reason.
call of the meeting tonight. So that's where the decision the board's going to make.
Okay, thank you.
Proceed with your budget, please.
Sure. So to the real item at hand, our budget amendment. This budget amendment is something we do annually. It's a mid-year cleanup. I know that Michael will do an end-of-year cleanup, and so will I as well. I just do this to make sure my budgets are clean going into year-end. So what this budget amendment is it cleans up the expenditures line items at mid-year. The amended revenue reflects state grant allocations not included in the original budget. The amended expenditures reflect increase in costs of advertising and legal contracts, instructional support, supplies and materials, maintenance, contracted services and equipment, and state mandated teacher instructional supplies and material allocations. This amendment has a net increase of both current year revenue and expenditures of $880,000 with no use of fund balance. And I also want to put out there, this is state funding. This is not any local funding that is being used here. This is additional TISA allocation and an additional voluntary pre-K grant that we're using for revenue. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please,
Brian,
Mr.
did you
Phillips.
say over $800,000 additional money coming from the state? Was that money earmarked and tagged for something, or do you use it at your discretion?
So what part of it was TISA. So with TISA, we receive our base funding, and then they also do an outcomes funding portion of it that we do not budget in our original budget because we don't know how much it's going to be from one year to the next, and we actually use this money to do the cleanups and then also be for any other projects that may come along that we have not budgeted for or talked about. But what this is additional TISA funding that was from our outcomes funding, which this year was a little over $4 million. So, and we don't budget for that, like I said, because we don't know from one year to the next how much that's going to be.
And if some of this, Brian, is for salaries, who would that be? Regular educational program salaries and wages?
What that
positions?
is our board voted to. Let me look at my notes. There's so many. When we received the money, or we took the money out of fund balance to pay for the weapons detection systems, we gave stipends to those that are manning the weapon detection systems of the.
I recall that.
That is what that is. It's weapon detection stipends and in the salary lines and their benefits.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I recall that we had that conversation when we chose those.
Yeah, I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah, thank you. I know that's on the spot. Mr. Gooch, did you have something? I may have interrupted you.
I think my question was answered. So the 880 reflects both increases and decreases.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll move that we approve the recommended motion to amend Fund 141 to clean up expenditure line items for a net increase of $880,000 in both revenue and expenditures. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Second. And we have a second. And Trey, thank you. I'm always grateful to have the budget come from our budget representative, so thank you for that. Any comments, Ms. Oliver?
Question. What is the net, or not necessarily net, what's the average funds that we get from TISA on average?
Well, it depends, because when we get our TISA.
Because we've been doing TISA now for what, 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah, so I just off the top of my head, this year, the state funding portion, because we also have to match it with our local side, but the state funding portion that we received from the state was around $380 million this year. And then, of course, that's just your base funding, not including your outcomes funding or any of the other your base and your weight funding. And then you have your outcomes funding, which includes the achievement of the students. So like I said, that was an additional $4.2 million this year, or a little over $4 million. Of course, we do also have to share that with our charter schools as well, so it was a little bit less than that. And then also, we call it the letter grade stipend. We get that as well. But unfortunately last year we got it and it was $4 million from the state. Unfortunately, it wasn't 100% funded this year, so they prorated it, and so we received $2.5 million instead of the $4 million that we actually were supposed to receive. But supposedly the word on the street is that it will be funded back to us, but unfortunately it'll be at year end, and most likely will roll into our fund balance at year end. So
you're saying that $4 million was not budgeted?
Yeah, we don't budget the outcomes funding because we don't know what it's going to be from one year to next. It's based off of student achievement. So they calculate that, and usually we get that in December, January timeframe. So we don't know from one year to the next if it's going to be 4 million. It's been 4 million, it's been 6 million, it's been all over the place. So we just don't budget for it because we don't know how much it's going to be. And I definitely do not want to put a number in there and it be over budgeted, and then I have to come back and reduce it later on.
And so of the 4 million, you're saying that there's 880,000 surplus?
No, of the 4,000, I'm using some of that $4 million to apply to this amendment. There's also another 400 and something thousand dollars in there that is voluntary pre-K grant that I did not budget for as well. So I'm putting that in there to cover the other half of it. So I split half between TISA, half between a grant that we receive from the state every year. Voluntary pre-K is one that we receive. That's
And this
recurring.
880K, this came from the state?
Yes, every bit of that is state funding. None of it local.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? We will move to call the roll. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Chairman Dodd.
Yes, thank
Motion
you.
passes.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Wilson, I will defer to you to introduce our guest tonight and begin the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. And while they're coming up here, I'll give just a little background. In December, the Treasury Department had a summit, and it was the Rutherford County Financial Wellness Scorecard. There was quite a few, I'm going to say, quite varied attendees, from business owners to people in education. The Smyrna mayor attended, so quite an array of community, I'm going to say, leaders, business owners, educators, and so on. It was a really eye-opening set of information, and I think what you guys will find is we have been, for going into our 4th year now, we've been working with United Way in this committee, hearing an annual report on the ALICE, and on how the financial struggles in Rutherford County, how that's really affecting housing and how that's affecting various areas of public health. This seems like a very natural, great time progression for this committee and our county commission to see a little bit more of a comprehensive report. And so Director Parker here can tell you where the information comes from and kind of what's going on with the state treasurer and how this works. But the information is not a generic Tennessee scorecard set of information. It is specifically about our county. So I think everyone's going to find it not only informative, but I think it shows where this committee and this commission and the Board of Education are going to really work to partner with our Treasury Department. And the school board has already passed a resolution in which they are wanting to support efforts to integrate age-appropriate financial literacy courses from K through 12. That's certainly something we're going to look at also agreeing to support, in addition to a broader view of supporting to try to get community partners involved with us and with the State Treasury Department to work together to see what we can do, not only through education. Obviously, that's what the school board and Board of Education are working on, but for our adults. And I think you guys remember the United Way, and we've got some representatives here tonight from the United Way. They have a program that they've begun with financial literacy in Rutherford County, just trying to help folks get back on their feet, understand how to do things like pay bills, save, understanding what they need to do to be able to save for the future. So I think everyone on this committee is going to be super excited by being a part of this. And I think this is the start of something greater that will carry into previous years in the commission, which is focusing on what I think is one of the greatest public health priorities we have, is financial literacy. The more folks understand and we can help them know what they need to do, especially early on in their lives, and they have an understanding, they're going to get a head start that many don't have right now. And I think this commission's been focused on that, and this committee especially, on seeing this as being a big part of public health. So let me say a few words about Director Parker here. So Bill Parker serves as the director of the Tennessee Financial Literacy Commission, a 501c3 nonprofit organization created by the Tennessee General Assembly under the Financial Literacy Program Act of 2010. Under Bill's executive leadership, the commission serves as a thought leader and a conduit for ensuring Tennesseans of all age have access to high-quality financial education resources designed to help improve financial well-being and economic mobility. And I can't think of a better way to phrase what we're here tonight to discuss. So, Director Parker, the floor is yours, sir.
Commissioner Wilson, thank you so much for the invitation to join and the opportunity to speak with you and the committee tonight. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. You covered a lot of the things that I'm going to touch on tonight very eloquently. So what I would like to do is point you all to the materials that we've brought today. A lot of the items that I'll cover in some of my remarks will be on those documents for you to review and to reflect on. In particular, I want to point you to the PowerPoint presentation, as this covers more in depth some of the data points that you guys might be interested in from Tennessee at large, but also specifically some of those points in Rutherford County. Second, before I get started, I want to take a point of personal privilege here and say, I just found out last week that I have family from Rutherford County from the 1800s before they pushed west, where most of my family was from. I just learned last week that I have family here from southwest Rutherford County. So this is kind of an interesting full circle moment that I didn't know was going to come after this had already been scheduled. So really pleased to be here. And again, thank you all for this opportunity. And thank you also for your interest in financial health. As Commissioner Wilson mentioned, this all kind of got kicked off recently with our Scorecard Summit here that we held in Smyrna. And this is kind of a jump from what we've historically done. We spent a lot of our time developing a lineup of resources that we can take to any school in our state and say, you know, here's the importance of financial literacy and financial education. Can we begin finding opportunities that don't disrupt the things that you're already doing, but simply uses money as the engagement tool to engage students in some of this age-appropriate content around financial literacy that really is that life skill that one needs as they graduate high school. So how can we get it in the schools early and often in a way that kind of builds upon itself so that we know we're graduating students who are ready for the real world? And Tennessee was an early adopter of the high school personal finance course, so we know that's a required course before graduation for many students. However, how can we make sure that we are taking full advantage, making sure students are getting the full value of that course? I had some prepared remarks, but I'm going to jump around a bit and just talk about that course, simply as an opportunity that the state and the General Assembly set, which is acknowledging that this is an important critical life skill. We need students to kind of be up to date and aware of these issues. So we're going to guarantee that they have access to this course. The research has shown that a student who takes that course versus a student who doesn't, there's a $100,000 lifetime benefit for just simply taking the course. And again, in Tennessee, we're an early adopter of that requirement of personal finance. But what can we do to make sure that students get the full value of the course? And some of those things are simply making sure that it's available, particularly for juniors, more than it would be for freshmen in terms of the value that they can pull from using that information going forward. And how can we make sure that the educators who are teaching that course are fully supported, fully understand that their role has this, this meteoric value in the lives of students if they move beyond simply pressing play on a DVD and letting students absorb the information versus having them conduct some more project-based lessons that they can apply in their own lives, either right away or certainly something that they can reflect on as they move through the course. We want it to be an easy A, but we want students to get the full value. So I'll digress and get back to my remarks here because I do want to reflect on the actual Scorecard Summit itself. And the purpose of the summit was pretty simple. It was to move from assumptions to data, and then from data to coordination. And so in order to do so, we wanted to have the data element, which is the financial wellness scorecard that you guys have on your tables. And it was, the full assessment was conducted by the Boyd Center for Business and Economic Research at UT. They pulled in a lot of state and national data, including some of the ALICE information that has been referenced today through the United Way, to give a full snapshot of what is happening in households across the state of Tennessee. And some of those metrics we can pinpoint down to the county level. And so the innovative thing that the Boyd Center did with our data is they created composite scores based on some of the metrics that you'll find on this Rutherford County specific document. And you'll see on the back some of those metrics I'm referencing. And in doing that, they came up with a composite score. You guys will not be surprised to know that Rutherford County scored really well on that. They were ranked 11th out of all 95 counties in overall financial wellness, 5th in median income at $82,588, 4th in poverty rate, that's at 8.8%. Now again, since we've been bringing up the ALICE population, it's worth referencing that the poverty rate is only one way to measure what those households are experiencing based on the amount that they're earning. But what the ALICE study, in particular for Tennessee, shows is that 44% of all households in our state are ALICE households, asset limited, income constrained, yet employed. So they're working, and they're still unable to make ends meet, ultimately, on a survival budget. And so thinking about what that does to a family, this notion of financial stress, it's the number one cause of divorce, it snowballs into other areas of our lives, and it's worth paying attention to at minimum. So those are some of the indicators of strength. But the data that we're looking at also kind of surface this dual reality that homeownership ranks 83rd in the state at 65% here in Rutherford County. 27.6% of residents have subprime credit scores. That's under 660. And as of September 2025, the share of median income required to afford a median priced home in Rutherford County reached 39.8%. And anything above 30% is considered unaffordable. And so thinking again back to the ALICE households, if there are 44% across our state, it may be a similar metric in our county. I know your local United Way would have a better grasp on what that looks like. But if you think of someone who's living on a fixed income or living paycheck to paycheck, something like home affordability, spending 40% of your income on just housing could set you up to be financially vulnerable in many other areas of your life, forcing you to have to, for example, choose to pay utilities over going to the doctor, or you can think of a number of scenarios there. So we see economic growth, but also affordability pressure. And when nearly 28% of residents have subprime credit, that carries consequences not just to the individual, but the individual's family and also the community. That money is not circulating in the local economy. It's not being invested for future goals. It's not building generational stability. And this is where financial wellness intersects with housing, health, and economic resilience. From the summit itself, three major themes emerged. One was there's strong interest in identifying or empowering a local lead organization to explore how families are connected to existing resources. So what's available for the families in crisis today, right? And how can we better coordinate with those families to make sure that they have full access to all of the local resources, perhaps by the United Way and others, but also the state resources that are in existence. There are a lot of state agencies that have some hands in the world of financial wellness that could be helpful. So are the families aware of what exists? Are referrals coordinated? Is there a trusted entry point? And again, for example, United Way operates the 211, the navigation system. Many people aren't aware of that critical resource and how it can be helpful to many families. And the families that are living paycheck to paycheck are probably spending a lot of time focusing on how to make ends meet and need somebody to help introduce them to these types of resources. So the question is whether there is an opportunity to better align and amplify those efforts, because again, Rutherford County is full of great organizations that are doing excellent work. Can there be more cohesion in making sure that they have access and awareness to all of the supports that are out there? There's also interest in expanding community-based financial education opportunities that are unbiased and non-sales oriented. So workshops on credit building, again, helping young people understand that credit is the business community's way of evaluating your trustworthiness, right? I talk about it like a GPA is the best measure that schools have to measuring your academic achievements. It may not be fully accurate, but it's the best that they have available currently. So credit building, fraud and scam prevention, particularly with our elderly population and how that could impact them. Home ownership preparation and budgeting in today's digital environment. And this should be delivered by trusted community partners, and this builds confidence and reduces vulnerability. The third major theme was building upon existing financial education infrastructure in the schools. I've touched on this a little bit already, but there are some things in the works that we're developing at the commission level, which we've identified that could really lift up our state. And the state has invested in requiring that high school personal finance course. Now we want to figure out how we can bring a spotlight and shine it on the teachers that are really knocking it out of the park. And you have those here in Rutherford County that could serve as a light in many other communities across our state. And some that attended our Scorecard session as well, our Scorecard Summit there in Smyrna. But what that looks like to me is, teachers who have done the basic 14-hour training. At this point, there's no requirement for them to get any additional training beyond the 14 hours needed to qualify to teach the course. We're in the process of developing an advanced level personal finance teacher training that could take a teacher, and again, I'm falling back on research from the University of Tennessee Extension that showed a lot of teachers, they teach toward the standards, but they tend to run out of time at the end of the semester when it gets toward investments and insurance, some of the more sophisticated items. So how can we better support them, make sure that they have full confidence and best practices and their ability to share these critical life skills? And as I mentioned, we're developing this advanced level personal finance teacher training that should serve as a model to help build leaders in that field so that they can begin, that iron sharpens iron model of teaching each other best practices for the betterment of students, families, and communities. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention research also highlights this great spillover effect with teachers. I failed to introduce Drew Freeman and James Armistead with the Department of Treasury. As I'm thinking about this spillover effect, I'm thinking, teachers are taking this information and applying it to their own lives. And the Department of Treasury, you look at the Venn diagram of what the Treasury is doing and what we're doing in the Financial Literacy Commission, teachers sit right in the middle. The Treasury Department is trying to help them prepare for retirement readiness. We're trying to help them build their confidence and their capacity to effectively teach their students these critical life skills. And so there are some angles that the Treasury has that work directly with teachers. And I know Rutherford County is pretty open to having those presentations. So I commend you all for that in particular, but also wanted to highlight this great spillover effect and multiplier effect that one well-trained teacher is implementing in their own life, and they're able to share that with potentially hundreds of students going forward. So a worthwhile investment. And also want to commend the Rutherford County Board of Ed for passing the resolution that is exploring implementing financial literacy down into middle school and also elementary school. But to further highlight some of the items that the Financial Literacy Commission provides, and I'll be wrapping up shortly here, we provide student engagement programs, ones that, you don't need to be an expert to implement some of these resources. My Classroom Economy is a classroom behavioral management system where students have jobs, and it's simply how teachers operate their classroom behavioral management system. It has nothing to do with instructional time. There's also the From Barter to Budget traveling trunk that we have in partnership with the State Museum that ties directly into social studies standards for first and second grade. We have a partnership with Money Week, or with UT Extension for Money Week, that brings folks like you into the classroom to read a children's financial literacy book. And then the teachers conduct lessons on the themes of the book that tie into Tennessee academic standards. And we also have digital financial literacy platforms. And again, these are all free. We fundraise through the commission to provide these at no cost to schools. We also do teacher engagement through professional development. I mentioned one that we offer through the Department of Treasury on retirement readiness. We also have direct trainings on implementing our resources. We also have a Distinguished Educator Council that helps kind of provide feedback on what that could look like and how we can kind of work with educators to make sure that we're playing within their, the objectives that they have and the challenges that they're facing in teaching the Tennessee academic standards, preparing students for the test, and also the bell-to-bell requirements that they're facing already. So we're grateful for the number of teachers from Rutherford County that have participated, and we certainly welcome any additional ones to participate with us. And a shameless plug, we have another training tomorrow, February 25th. We invite Rutherford County teachers or anyone else to participate in that regard for our My Classroom Economy training. So we have many partners ready to expand the work in Rutherford County. I've shouted out a few of them already. Many local credit unions in particular and banks that are doing great work in the area. Nonprofits like the United Way is doing excellent work. You guys also have the Center for Financial Literacy at MTSU, ran by Dr. Maria King, right here in your backyard. The Tennessee Jumpstart Coalition has great representatives from this area. And also Jackie Morgan with the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta Nashville branch, who's also at the Scorecard Summit, is very active and a leader in financial literacy. And she and Maria King also do that 14-hour training in addition to UT Extension to help prepare teachers the basic level of 14 hours so that they can teach the personal finance course. So there's appetite for collaboration. What often accelerates impact is alignment and leadership. And so with that, I will say thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you all. Thank you for the interest in helping to kind of fine-tune and sharpen this momentum that has already been started here. And really looking forward to seeing where this goes for the betterment of the next generation who is trying to take a sip from a fire hose when it comes to learning how to participate well in the current economy, right? And just, again, before I wrap up, just the difference between when some of us were learning financial literacy, just think about where you learned it, right? Was it parents? Was it school? Was it, starting your first job, or was it the School of Hard Knocks kind of learning and having to course correct? Because students today, I often say balancing a checkbook is no longer mean financially literate, right? You have students who are buy now, pay later from their phone. They are using phone payment apps regularly. And they also basically on the same phone have a 24-hour casino in their pocket, right? And this is taking students who might be more confident at age of 18 in their team winning this weekend, or tonight, I think Tennessee is playing tonight, basketball team, they might be more confident in their team winning than they might be in investing in low-cost mutual funds for the next 30 years, right? And so we want to make sure that we're accessing these students in a way that has, some age-appropriate supports, introducing them to these things so that they can develop the habits, the attitudes, and the skills that they can carry with them for the rest of their life. Okay, with that, I digress, and again, thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Committee, first, I'm just amazed at the information we have available to us. And have been amazed by other items that Phil's brought to us that we in some way can contribute to the common good of our community that we don't recognize, we don't see, unless we invite people in. So thank you. We're going to hold for questions, but then I'll have a comment about how can we help. Any questions or any other comments from the committee? Mr. Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought I heard you say tomorrow or sometime later this week there's going to be some type of a training class. Was that could you go over that again? Is that for people who want to volunteer to help children in financial preparedness? Is that?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. So this is a teacher training, and it's specifically for our classroom behavioral management system that we have called My Classroom Economy. And it's an online training as well. So you can find it, if there are people watching, on tnflc.org, and they can find information under the educator resources page on that. Thank you.
My Classroom Economy.
Yes.
That's an interesting title.
And I'll say it's a program developed by Vanguard, the global mutual fund and investment company, and we have a $0 contract just to kind of spread the word across Tennessee to make sure that our students have access to these great programs.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Ms. Oliver.
So just clarify for me, students are already required to do personal finance?
Many of them in high school are required, yes.
Right.
There are exceptions, but yes.
Right. So then I'm trying to wrap my head around, what is it that you're asking? If this information is already being taught in the schools, where's the disconnect for me, I guess? I'm trying to understand, what is it that you're asking?
Yeah, so with regard to the high school personal finance class in particular, there are states, we went from, I think, 10 states to now 30 states that require that course now before graduation, acknowledging that if they're not getting at school in a formal setting, it's very likely that they're not getting a solid financial education. But we have an interesting perspective in Tennessee that we passed the legislation as an unfunded mandate, but we have a way of making sure that the implementation is going to graduate our students in a way that they get the full value of the course. So what I'm asking, and what the school board has already adopted, is to say we should have age-appropriate information introduced almost like any other subject matter, like math or anything else, that is scaffolded in a way that gets students up to ready to graduate, so that when they take that class, they're ready to learn about some of the more sophisticated things like investments and insurance that they can apply in their own lives, versus trying to learn what a budget is, et cetera, right? So to sum up what I'm saying, from a school standpoint, if a student who takes the course without having an expert teacher is going to see a $100,000 lifetime benefit for taking that class, and you can think of an improved credit score and what they're going to borrow for the rest of their lives, and access to credit, maybe even starting an investment account early and letting that time compound over time. How much better off will our students be if they have access to these things and know XYZ by 4th grade, by 8th grade, and then by high school, so that they're not required to learn all of that? And again, I kind of alluded to taking a sip from a fire hose and being expected to build your life on that information. So a scaffolded approach that makes financial wellness a greater part of the school system.
So then this is a curriculum issue.
Not necessarily. We find a way to tie it in with other academic subject areas.
Right, so it's a curriculum issue. So then, has this been presented to the Department of Ed?
The commissioner of the Department of Ed serves on our board, and we're in regular conversations. But, you know, Tennessee is very much local control state as well. So we have to sort of develop this, use data to show some of the trends that are taking place from a household perspective, and then work at the local community level to develop the support and the pathways for implementation.
When you said Department of Ed, did you mean local board or the state?
I mean the Department of Ed, I mean where curriculum is dictated.
At the
So I'm
State
just
Department.
asking that question, if it's a curriculum issue, can it not be dictated through the Department of Ed? I'm still trying to figure out what you want from us.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
can help with that.
And Mr. Wilson can as well, I believe, so that,
Well, I was going to, excuse me, but on our iPad, there is a template for a resolution. And this is what you're wanting from us to kind of move this forward. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah. And, you know, this was a templated resolution that we brought as a potential kind of momentum builder as a takeaway from our scorecard summit. And this builds the cohesion from a county commission perspective. This is kind of acknowledging that financial health is a core component of overall health and well-being. And again, you know, we had a similar resolution that was targeting the curriculum efforts that you were referencing through the school board, and they adopted the resolution.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we take this resolution and send it to steering committee.
and I would, before you say that, I would like Mr. Wilson to read the resolution. It's a part of a package, it's a template, and Mr. Parker, I'm not suggesting you leave the podium, but, because I think Commissioner Oliver's,
I was not
right.
finished with my questions either.
Yeah, the clarity of she hadn't had her question answered, perhaps the reading of the resolution would. It's on the SharePoint, perhaps reading it to the body. Would
I
you?
read the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Excuse
I
me.
did. I saw it. So back to the point that you said someone from the Department of Ed is on your steering committee or
On our board of directors.
on your board. So I'm an educator.
Yeah.
Okay, with a curriculum background. I'm just trying to figure out why isn't this coming through Department of Ed? If you're trying to, sounds like, enhance the personal finance course and trying to, as you say, scaffold it and introduce it to students sooner, why isn't that a curriculum issue that's being handled by the Department of Ed?
Yeah, I can't really speak to that. I can speak to, our perspective in running the Tennessee Financial Literacy Commission. We were established in statute to try to find ways to promote and improve financial education. And through the schools is the best way to do that, right? It's sort of that catch-all. And so I can't really speak to why the Department of Ed isn't directly involved outside of supporting the commission itself.
So a resolution, should it pass here and wherever else, what would that do for the work that you're trying to do?
Yeah, so that would help. I think what it does is brings a spotlight to the issue, and it helps, it furthers the momentum that is established with groups like the United Way, the banks and the credit unions that are having efforts, and other nonprofits to try to drive and improve financial wellness, to form a cohesive effort in a way that is going to better connect with families. So there's two ends of this. One is, how can we work with families who need help today, and how can we make sure that the next generation isn't fighting some of these same battles, right? So then you can kind of see the public health resolution versus the education one that the school board passed recently in Rutherford County.
And I kind of see this as just exposure. This is a place to expose it, a place to help propel it out into the community at large. It's lip service unless we do something, and the something is yet to be determined, but to have the language of the efforts in our minutes, the language of the efforts in a resolution read here, read at the full commission, the language of this effort that the resolution we would hope would rise to the state level with Representative Sparks. I think Senator Shane Reeves is engaged in this. So I think we're just kind of trying to push this to where there could be an action, is my thought. Mm-hmm. And I think Phil was inspired, having attended the Scorecard in Smyrna a while back, that not enough people know about this. How do we help? Can we help get it out there? It's a health and well-being for the common good of Rutherford County to get it out there. And I look forward to, if this passes in the future, how can we put money where our mouth is? How can we affect curriculums, or how can we assist those who fit this criteria? So I'm thinking baby steps. That's my opinion.
And relative to the training for the teachers, is there a cost associated with that?
No, all of our training is free. Our programs and materials are free as well.
And then the teachers are offered a stipend?
They have access to, we have like a door prize gift card drawing, but not every teacher gets it.
And that's for coming to the training?
Correct.
And when you talked about the various levels of instructors that would be presenting this curriculum, can you further, I guess, differentiate? You spoke to that a little bit in your presentation.
You mean our Distinguished Educator Council?
Yes.
So we do have a Distinguished Educator Council that we leverage for best practices, and actually one of their recommendations was to move this particular training to the spring, so January, February timeframe, the spring semester, if you will. And so, they help us with, different ways that we can work within the school system, given its challenges and the various efforts that take place. But the tomorrow's training is conducted by volunteers from Vanguard who run the My Classroom Economy program itself.
Mm-hmm. And then you made mention about behavior.
Yeah, so that's the classroom behavioral management system.
Mm-hmm.
It's experiential learning, right? So there's PBIS is a popular classroom behavioral management tool. Classroom Dojo is often utilized. This basically, in a nutshell, has students that are doing tasks that the teacher would want them to do. So they're assigned jobs. For example, if it's an elementary, it's a K-12 program, so it can be utilized in the upper grades. But I think the sweet spot is upper elementary, where students have jobs like, my job could be the horticultural specialist, and I water plants, is my job. But it's a way to bring kids into the classroom environment, right? It's creating a classroom economy. And then it gives them essentially a paycheck, like Monopoly money, dollars.
Gotcha.
A lot of schools use tickets. This is an overt, this is a currency. Mm-hmm. So it kind of brings it overtly to the surface. And then they pay rent on their desk or a spot on the floor. It's kind of that financial responsibility. And then teachers have access to offering bonuses or fines for behavioral management. But they also have the ability, students have the ability to save up for a classroom auction or a school store format where they're actually utilizing these things for real world tangible benefits. And those benefits don't have to cost anything. I always talk about school in West Tennessee we went and watched. They had, the thing that went highest at auction was the ability to sit with your shoes off for the rest of your day. You can sit at the teacher's desk, you can get, this is also a program that invites community support. So like coupons for a pizza or an ice cream cone, these are types of things that the community can further support financial education taking place in the schools. And again, it's not a textbook, it's simply how you manage the classroom. So it's fun for the teachers and for the students.
So it's presented more, as you said, as behavioral management as opposed to a curriculum change.
That particular resource, yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Chairman, one thing I wanted to to bring up, and I'll just give my testimony of my vision of what I see, what this is going to do. You pretty much have made the point I'm about to say. We must have 30 individuals and organizations in Rutherford County alone, at least 30, that are all going about trying to help further solving this problem by themselves. It's about time that Rutherford County comes together with all of its resources, from government to people in the private sector to those that are doing nonprofit organizations and the work of the United Way. And instead of 30 people working by themselves, I want to see some synergy of what we can do when we actually all work together. And when I'm finished reading the resolution, we vote on that, which I hope the committee will favor to send this to steering and then on to the full commission. I'm going to ask Representative Sparks to come up to also make some comments. I think he's got some great things to say. He and I have talked about this subject for several years about the importance. So if I can put some words from being a spectator and an attendee, Director Parker, we're looking to take individual efforts and put everyone together, group it together, build momentum. And Rutherford County, to me, has a chance to be one of the catalysts as the fastest growing county in the state, as what I consider to be the best school system in the state and the fastest growing, to be the catalyst for starting to say, this isn't just schools. Schools is one. You mentioned retirement. So the United Way is actually working with families that are of any age that are struggling on how to get on their feet. We talked about the Alice program. These aren't school children, these are working families. So this is a broader recognition of financial wellness being a public health priority, is what I believe we're saying that we want to be a part of supporting today. And schools are the start, but it's certainly after school is going to continue through an adult and family life, and even further on to our seniors. We just want to work together and stop working as individuals. So with that said, I'd like to read the resolution of support that we were provided. This is a resolution of the Rutherford County Commission recognizing financial wellness as a public health priority. Whereas financial wellness is closely linked to physical and mental health, housing security, and overall quality of life. And whereas the Tennessee Financial Wellness Scorecard identifies key indicators of financial stress that impact the well-being of individuals and families across the state. And whereas addressing financial wellness through a public health lens can help reduce disparities, improve outcomes, and strengthen community resilience. And whereas counties play a vital role in fostering partnerships and aligning resources to address complex, interconnected challenges, now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that we recognize financial wellness as a public health priority and support collaborative efforts to improve financial outcomes for all residents. Be it further resolved that the Commission encourages, 1, cross-sector partnerships among public health agencies, financial institutions, nonprofits, employers, and community organizations to address financial wellness. 2, community-based initiatives that reduce financial stress and improve access to financial education, tools, and services. 3, integration of financial wellness strategies into broader public health, housing, and social service programs. 4, support for efforts to integrate age-appropriate financial literacy into K-12 education as part of a long-term strategy to build financial capability from an early age. And 5, ongoing evaluation of local financial wellness indicators and sharing of best practices to guide future action. Resolved this 12th day of March in 2026. Mr. Chairman, I move that we send this to steering for approval.
I'm sorry, what was the question? Oh, that's-
Because it's written for the commission to approve at the March 12th meeting, it'll go from here to steering to final commission, so it's just in its final form.
Second.
Okay, let the record show that there was no second on the first motion, therefore, I declare that this is the correct motion with a second. Is that sufficient?
And it's going to steering, is that correct?
The motion was to steering for consideration to go to the full commission. Okay. Now, we have a proper motion and second. Is there any more discussion?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the definition of financial wellness?
That's a great question. So there are, I like to use the Financial Health Network's definition, which it's capable, financially healthy means capable of handling daily needs, shocks, and long-term goals.
Okay, so minimum wage is still minimum wage.
Right.
Wages are still down. Inflation is still there. So then they get the necessary, I guess, education to let them know where they are financially. But with this and the collaboration and things of that nature and the efforts moving forward, is it just for education purposes, or are you looking at doing some other things legislatively, like cutting food tax, increasing wages, things? Are you going to do anything to kind of help them put money in their pockets?
That might be,
Or keep some of the money that they are earning?
yeah, I think those are great questions. I think would be better suited for a legislator. We, the Financial Literacy Commission, totally focus on the education side. Our strength is convening the right people to talk about the data and what the households are facing. But anything with a policy lens, we'll need to talk with members of the Tennessee General Assembly.
And I understand that, and I understand that this part of this is going to be going before them. So I'm just asking, is that some of the action that can take place? That you can support those efforts? Because you're just identifying the problem. But then what about solutions, is my question.
Yeah, I would support solutions to some of these challenges, certainly. Yeah. And education is only one of those solutions.
We have a proper motion and second. Seeing no further discussion, I think this is appropriate for just an aye. Okay. All those in favor of this motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Phillips,
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a couple of questions.
please.
We've talked, especially the last 4 years, about planning for the future, and this is, in all probability, something that fits that mold exactly. A couple of questions. 10 years ago, houses in Rutherford County were $250,000. Interest rates were 1.5%. The cost of land is a third of what it is right now. So how do you plan as it relates to financial strategizing for things that have happened within Rutherford County over the last 10 years, specifically the last 5 or 6 years? You talked about housing and it costing 40%. 10 years ago, it was nowhere near that. Yeah. And nothing that government could have done could have offset materials doubling and tripling, the cost of land doubling and tripling, and interest rates going up 4 or 5 times. So the statistics that you presented, how is that possible that you can work those type of figures into high schoolers?
Yeah, so the education side is, if you're able to plan ahead, right? You can't foresee the future, you can't read the tea leaves, but what you can do is put yourself in a better position to be more resilient when times get challenging, right? And so, the economics, economic education could talk through some of the challenges and the way things happen the way they did. But the financial literacy side, the financial management is, how can I put myself in a financial position that is flexible and able to weather some of these storms, right? And what I'm simply saying, again, our background is K through 8 financial education. We're now bringing a spotlight to some of these more larger looming public health issues and seeing how some of these factors tie in together. But students, number one, learn from their parents these things. And if their parents aren't able to get them up to speed from a financial literacy standpoint, then they're sitting ducks, right? So I don't want to get too caught up on the economics and the data. I would love for a member from the Boyd Center to come talk about those elements, like an economist from UT. But what I can speak through from my expertise is the financial literacy, family financial management side of things.
I agree with that, and I think it's point on. My concern is that how is this process going to affect that 40% level that you mentioned a minute ago? You mentioned it, okay? You brought it up.
Yeah.
So is there a strategy, a way to prepare kids for that, in essence, saving, doing budget preparations, and not spending what you have in the bank today without a concern for how are you going to pay the electric bill next week?
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that I think you're talking about, right?
Correct. Yeah. The rules of thumb. So, decide what you're saving before you spend the rest, and you all of a sudden are building it into your financial future, some percentage saving that you can, you're building the habits early that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life, ultimately.
I've got a mature son that I'd probably like to send back to grammar school to go through some of this process. But one other question, item number 3, could you kind of explain what you mean by integration of financial wellness strategies into broader public health, housing, and social services? What do you mean there?
This is from the resolution.
Yes.
Yeah, so, home ownership education, thinking back to, helping people take full advantage of, for example, I have a little brother who's shopping for a home right now, and he qualified for up to X number of dollars. Now, the temptation is to spend every bit that he has access to, right? But how can we, this is the just-in-time type of information where people often learn from the School of Hard Knocks. How can we build in financial literacy infrastructure to the just-in-time decision-making from, an investment standpoint where we have people, diving into cryptocurrency, from sports wagering to help them understand maybe that's entertainment more than investment, right? All of these types of things, but how can we, work with organizations that are already doing this to build capacity to talk through some potential financial wellness angles that they can approach this from as well?
That's where the social services programs comes in?
Yeah, I would have to imagine, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Who wrote this resolution?
That was written by someone in the Treasury Department.
So with no input from anybody on this commission?
No. Not that I'm sorry, Phil.
We brought templates we had 3 of these meetings across the state, so we brought the same template to each of the 3 locations that we held these summits.
And I will reiterate that to Chairman Phillips' comments. This is an opportunity to create some momentum, to acknowledge that there are avenues. We don't know where to implement this. I think this Bill and his team are attempting to just simply get information to get terminology in our lexicon that we can propel this. And I do look forward to how we can implement.
Well, Chairman, I'd like to have Representative Sparks come up and just make a few remarks, but I would like to say this. This commissioner reading this, and I must be oversimplifying my vision for what I'm reading, because I am finding that number 3 there's already integration of financial wellness strategies having in our community through the United Way. We've already heard a presentation 2 years ago of how they're already integrating exactly what number 3 is. So it may be that I have been looking into this on a personal level more than others, so I see all 5 of these in action. Maybe that's why I was invited to the summit. I don't know how I got there. I thought everyone would be there, but maybe this is because I have been personally reaching out to different partnerships and banks and things and saying we've got to come together. So I think I have a different vision that may be further along, seeing how these things are already in motion in Rutherford County in different areas, but we're all not working together. And we even have questions here as a county government committee charged with overlooking funding of health and education. If we are confused on what our community partners are doing as part of this resolution, I think that makes my point. We must come together. If we're going to help solve the problems, meaning that we have to educate everyone in ways that they can better take care of themselves. If we don't start that process, we do have a generation that's struggling. We're talking about the importance of this today, but we can't go back 30 years and 20 years ago to our past graduates and make up for lost ground. So we're going to have to look at community partners to say, families that are in those 20s to 40s, how do we help them make it with young kids? How do we get to the next step? And I don't think anyone has the answers. And I think Representative Sparks is going to tell you how he slams his head against the head every day trying to figure out how do we do these things. So I'd like you to come talk about that, Representative Sparks. But what I see this as, and I'm reading the words, be it further resolved that the commission encourages. If any of you don't encourage any of these 5 things to happen, I'm very confused because I felt like that's what we've been doing all along. So that's this commissioner's opinion.
Thank you, Phil. And thank you, Mr. Parker. That resolution is approved. It will advance. And Representative Sparks, thank you for being here.
Bill, you know, I appreciate this body and Commissioner Phil Wilson and Chairman Dodd for y'all inviting me. This is an issue that matters. You know, while I was listening to y'all, I mean, I was kind of moved, you know, to be honest. And I was thinking of the word hope. I like that word hope. It's a beautiful name, isn't it? It's a beautiful name. Because we have to have hope for the future. A lot of folks don't have hope. I'm telling you, man, they don't have hope. I see it. You know, I left finance. I'm on the finance committee, and, you know, it's long hours. And I left Commissioner Jim Bryson, and I asked him, I said, what keeps you up at night? What keeps you up at night? And I told him, I said, let me tell you what keeps me up at night. My grandbabies. How many of y'all have grandkids? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. How many grandkids you got? 6 grandkids? Okay. Lay back and back there, grandkids. You know, I think when I was telling the commissioner, I think when you have grandbabies, I think it switches something in your brain. You look at life a little different. I know you've got like 10, don't you? Oh, just 2. I thought you had 10. I have 2. And 2's enough. Henry David and Grace, you know. I love that name, Grace. But, you know, I was telling them, I said, you know, look at the challenges we face in our state. You know, Commissioner Oliver brought up affordability. And I appreciate you bringing that because I've got a bill that cuts taxes off fresh fruit and vegetables. It's an affordability bill. It put $90 million back in the hands of taxpayers of Tennessee. Tennessee, people don't realize Tennessee is ranked number 44th to 45th when it comes to obesity, type 2 diabetes. We're a very unhealthy state. And some people don't want me saying that. You know, I've had that happen at the chamber recently. We rank 49th when it comes to mental health, you know. Got a bill on that. I mean, it's hard to legislate these issues. You know, I had a father call me back in September. He found his daughter hung in the closet. She was 14 years old. Hung herself in the closet. I think it's rise social media. You know, it's like, what do you do? What can I do for him? You know, and I think what we're doing for him is letting him bring awareness to his daughter and others where he gives other children hope and parents hope that they don't find their daughter hung in the closet. And that guy's name is Avery Kelleher. His daughter was River. The little nonprofit they started is called We Live for Riv. River Kelleher's her name. They're out of Winchester. There's a book called The Anxious Generation if you want to learn more. When you see these issues, it's it's like Bob Dylan said, the times they are changing, and they certainly have changed. What I was asking the commissioner today about what keeps me up at night is the challenges of home affordability. You know, like Commissioner Wilson mentioned, you know, when I was a kid, I bought my first home at 22, and $60,000. Now, we still own it. It's commercial property. It's in front of Nissan, and my wife runs the business over there. But I'll tell you what I think made the difference for me is I had a father. I had a father in my life. And in Nashville, what frustrates me is we got a book of lobbyists. People don't like me sharing this. So a book of lobbyists, I should have brought it with me. There's 330 lobbyists in there, every one of them. Many of them are taxpayer fund lobbyists. Your tax dollars paying for these people. Are they talking about these issues? I'd say none. None of them are. They're not talking about the fathers. They're not talking about home affordability. Now, some folks did come up to talk about home affordability today, I will, but they weren't lobbyists. They were just advocates. One was, I think, a city councilman out of North City. But what frustrates me in government is we don't talk about these issues enough. I can remember being here, Chairman Phillips, and I don't think you were on the committee. I think we had a public safety meeting. It was 20 minutes. It was 15 minutes long. Bam, we were out of there. You know, there's a lot of issues going on. But it's changed since I was a young county commissioner back in the day. But I think you're hitting on a topic that needs discussion, whether it's what we spend on health care. Why can't a young person, buy a home? I mean, the traffic issues. I just come from Nashville, and there are paving. You know, we got a backlog of 38. Some say 38. Some say 58 billion. Some said of the day 75 billion. But anyway, we got a backlog. Whatever number it is, it's a huge backlog. How do we get out of it? You know, they say when you catch yourself in a hole, quit digging. I don't know how we do it, but I think we got to have the discussion on this. But one of the areas that I care about on this, and I appreciate Commissioner Wilson bringing this up, is the area of predatory lending, predatory lenders. And I think most people know what predatory lenders are. We see a rise of them. Last year, and I'm fixing to make a lot of people mad, but the General Assembly increased interest rates. Why would you increase interest rates? Why? That's crazy. No constituent called and said, raise my interest rates. I called it the ugliest bill I've ever witnessed. It's an ugly bill. Not a beautiful bill, it's an ugly bill. You raise interest rates. Then you see Title Max, you see advanced finance, you see check into cash, you see all these predatory lenders. Smyrna banned them, and I appreciate Smyrna banned them. I don't think the county could ban them. I mean, but the kids need to be aware of this. Young people need to be aware of this. And I'm going to tell you why it matters. Smart choices matter. I had a father that instilled in me, don't borrow money. I think, didn't you work at the Omni Hut back in the day? I worked at the Omni Hut for $1.50 an hour. I had to walk to work many times. You learn the value of $1 because it wasn't given to you. If you wanted something, you had to work for it. But going back on this predatory lending, something I sadly seen, I shared this with Attorney General last week. I asked AG, I said, are you getting any complaints about fake reviews? You know, online reviews, Yelp reviews, Google reviews. He says, no, I hadn't, no one's approached me. I said, let me tell you what I've seen. And this all ties into financial literacy. It goes back to predatory lending. I had a guy reach out to me, my Kurdish friends that own a car business. They had sold a car to a lady, Miss Helen. Some of y'all may know this story. You can find it on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Miss Helen Predatory Lending, ms.Helen Predatory Lending. I made a video. A guy had loaned this African-American lady. She thought she was borrowing money at a $1,500 loan at 11%. You know how much it was? 11% a month. It was a bait and switch. He baits her in, 11%. It's all fraud, misrepresentation. Well, then she gets behind. It's a trap. The cycle of debt. Well, I knew better. I'd try to pay cash where I could. She thought she was going to typical credit union. And I'll tell you who it is. It's Tennessee Title Pond over here at Jackson Heights. Tell your kids, stay away from them. Tell your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your sisters, stay away from them. Because I'll tell you what they done to her. They tried to take her car. Loaned her $1,500. She already got suckered once. Had another loan. Then she realizes she's not getting out of this cycle of debt. She's digging. Can't get out of the hole. I had a safety net. I had a father. I had a mother. Many of these people don't have safety net. But I tell you what makes this so bad, going back to financial literacy, Mr. Parker, is that it was a bait and switch. You'll see the video, and I said, how much you charging her in interest? He says 11%. I was, oh, you are? So I took my cell phone, I just zoomed in on the contract, it's 132%. And I said, well, who was Dale? You know who Dale was? Dale was texting her. Dale was a repo man. True story. This could be made a movie. Dale's repo man, and Dale's threatening her, saying, don't be hiding your car, texting her. Don't be hiding your car. Here's what made matters even worse. Miss Helen, I guess, was in her 60s. She bought the car. She's taking care of her sister. Her sister battling cancer, special needs. Her sister since has passed. And I was telling the guy, for a split second, he has a moment of compassion. You'll see it in the video. Miss Helen, predatory lending. And I said, you realize what would happen to her? And I shared this with AG last week in finance. If you took her car, she'd probably be homeless. Both of them would be on the streets of Rutherford County. Then they're back on government assistance. Then she's back in a hole. How'd she get out of that? And I got to share that with AG. And I told the guy, I said, I'm gonna cost you 10 grand worth of bad press. I ain't smart enough to line it up. The Lord must line it up because I got Fox 17 in there. Easy 10 grand worth of bad press. But here's the guy's business model. Goes back to financial literacy. Baits them in, 11%, really it's 132%. His whole game is to sell her car, repo her car, boom, sell. That's why he's running dealer plates. He ain't supposed to be running dealer plates. Brought that up to the motor vehicle, they haven't done anything. Again, lethargic department, don't care. You gotta have people that care. And I know this body cares because you're willing to talk about this issue tonight. But I asked Miss Helen after, because the guy wouldn't give her the title. She begged and borrowed from everybody. And she called me crying the next day, and she said, and she went off. She was so upset because she's worried about her sister, worried about losing her car. She says, I'm $100 short, and the man won't give me the title. That's why I got Fox 17 involved. That's why I wound up out there. That's why I called Murfreesboro Police to come in there. And it's kind of a touching story because it's a black cop and a white cop. And I said, can you go get the title? Remember, she paid him the $100. He was being a jerk, I should say, keep it light. And he was going to mail her the title. He was going to slow walk getting her title. She's so worried about losing her car. And but the Murfreesboro Police, I got to give a shout out to them. They did a good job. But I asked her, I said, why did you even shop here? Why did you come here? Why did you go to Heritage South? Why did you go to Redstone Credit Union? She says, I seen their 145 positive reviews. I'm like, do you really think that people give them 145 positive reviews? It's all fraud. And that's why I've asked the AG to look into this. But here's something that's important. I shared this with the AG after. It didn't come to me later. I happened to call the guy the day before, Commissioner Gooch, just because I didn't know how to help her. I really didn't know what to do. So I just act like I want a loan. And I said, how much would it be if I borrowed $1,500? He goes, oh, it'd be 9%. Charge her 11%. So I told the AG, white dude offers me 9%, charge her 11%. That got his attention right there. So this financial literacy matters because, you know, my dad helped me get my first car, helped me get my first business, loaned me $10,000 at 21 to start my first business. When I sold my car, that was my down payment to buy the house on Nissan Drive that now is worth $600,000 when it was $60 back in the day. But thank y'all. This is important, and I appreciate y'all helping to raise awareness for the next generation. And if y'all get questions from me, I'll take them.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for bringing this up. I know we're scratching the surface. I look forward to more clarity and education in the future. Commissioners, that concludes our agenda. Is there any other business? I see a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Davidson. We did a voice vote.
Acclamation, yes.
Yes, and then and Chairman Phillips waited until we were already voted before he. Yeah, which is perfect for the chairman. I have heard an entertainment to adjourn, so moved.